This episode is brought to you by Musicology, creators of simply delightful music lessons for all ages and abilities. Music makes us human. Find your perfect match at musicology.com.
Welcome to Stage Vault. The show ends, the vault opens, where music legends share the prep, the rush, the feelings, and the thoughts behind every unforgettable night on stage. Stage Vault.
JJ, I want to thank you for joining me. Welcome to the vault.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. It's an honor. Listen, JJ, you're about to walk on stage for the first time in years with a different voice on the microphone. What does that feel like from the guitarist side of the stage?
I've known Sebastian for a long time. And when this whole thing kind of came together, I asked him to come to New York City and to play for a while because I wanted to hear how it would sound. Not so much for him. I don't doubt his abilities. I just hadn't stood on stage really for long periods of time with the guitar. I mean, the last thing I did as a performer was I played at the New Orleans Jazz Fest 2 years ago as a special guest with DeVelle Crawford, and Steve Jordan from the Rolling Stones was the drummer. And we did about an hour set, and that was fun. But, this was a little different. So Sebastian came in, and we did 8 hours of rehearsal. And it was great. So, he sounded great. He sings the songs in the original key, which we haven't done since 1987. When Dee joined, we tuned down a half step, and then we tuned down yet again years later. So the songs sound very different when they're down a half step, and they sound even more different when they're down a full step. So from a musician standpoint, it's a technicality to a observer. They may not know or care to know the difference, but to a musician who knows the music, it's different. So it actually sounds really good. Baz is a great singer and a great performer.
Yeah. Is there a part of this preparation that feels the same as it always did?
Yeah. You know what? I hate to say it's like riding a bike, but for me, I'm over 9,000 performances, in the 50 some odd year history, going back to the bar days. A set is a set is a set, a show is a show is a show, and you start doing 40 on, 20 off in the old days, 5 times a day, 6 days a week, and eventually you get down to 4 shows a night for like the next 3 years, and then 3 shows a night for the next 3 years, and then 2 shows. So, it's just what we do. I don't know how else to put it. It's so automatic. It's just your body falls right back into the mode. I guess it's going to be that way, until I die. I don't know how else to put it. It's just the way it is, And when people look at these pictures of us at these festivals with 100,000 people out there, when they go, and they always say, well, what is that like? It's the question. What is that like? And I go, it's like anything else. Once you do it all the time, it's just the way you do it. And so you don't think about it. I think if you ask a football player, hey, man, you're in the Super Bowl. What's it like? They'll tell you for the first 10 minutes, it's overwhelming. And then the game begins. And then you just have to that takes over. And so what happens is the performance takes over after about 10 or 15 minutes, and you're just doing another show. So I don't mean to minimize the impact of what it is like to do it, but it is a job, for lack of a better way to put it. It's kind of like a Broadway show. You go to see a Broadway show. That show's the same show every night, right? But the actor has a responsibility to be as great as they have to be that night, because that's the only night you're going to see them. So it doesn't matter if you're having a bad night or a bad day or whatever. You got to be great. And I think that we were disciplined as a band to learn how to do that, to put the best thing we can every time we go on stage. I don't know how to do it any other way.
Walk me through the last 30 minutes before a Twisted Sister show. What's actually happening at that time?
what's going? Well, it really depends. If it's a festival, you want to know what the weather conditions are like. If it's raining, if it's cold, it's this, or the other. You want to know what the vibe of the crowd is kind of like. How they've been that night. As the manager, when I walk up on stage, my brain is thinking, how are the monitors, how's the flash pots and special effects, does everyone know where they are so nobody gets blown up, whatever. So the first couple of songs we do in a show, usually in the big festivals, I'm kind of hanging back watching everything just to make sure everything's okay. I'm watching the D, or I'm watching Mark, I'm watching Eddie, trying to judge whether the stage monitors are doing what they have to do, and understand the limitations. When you're on these really big stages that are 100 feet long, and there's ego ramps, and there's no wireless, there's no monitors out there, you have to go on instinct. You have to kind of just know, you feel your way through it. A lot of times I will be so far away from the band, and I'll have to kind of glance around and see where the drummer is to know that it's on beat. And because it's so loud and you wear ear protection, you can't really hear what's going on, so you have to change guitars all the time, and thinking it could be out of tune. You don't want to be out of tune, so you change them every song just to make sure you're not out of tune, because sometimes you're so far away from it, and I'm wearing ear protection. It's so effective. I know what I'm doing, but I can't hear it. So I'm thinking everyone out there is going, wow, this is great. And I'm going, okay, I think I'm in playing the right part at the right time. It's a business, it's a business.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that. You must have mentioned, the bar band years, 6 nights a week, rejection letters by day, thousands of people at night. What did that pre-show feel like?
Well, that was just the way it was for years. I don't know. Look, the band had a luxury of having a huge following. As we would get rejected during the daytime, we would go out that night and play in front of a couple of thousand people, and that happened all the time. So you kind of lick your wounds, but it wasn't like you got a rejection and then you went, oh my God, let's think about it for the next 4 weeks. No, you had a job to do that night. So we would get a turn down from a label, and then we'd go out on stage at some club in the tri-state area, and there's 1,500 people, 2,000, 5,000, and you go, well, we can't suck, that bad. I mean, there's 5,000 people out here who are telling us we're on the right track, even though everyone else is telling us it's not happening. It's a very strange history. Most bands don't have that history, don't have that kind of a history to deal with. So it's very unique on our side, because the band was so big in the tri-state area. We could sell out every venue, and the venues were so big, and these were bars that, young bands don't understand. In those days, the bars held up to 5,000 people. This was for cover bands. This wasn't for concert attractions. This was cover bands, mind you. This band did the Doors show. We weren't even called tribute bands in those days. They were just, this band was specialized in the Doors, and this band specialized in Pink Floyd and Yes, and this band specialized in Southern rock groups, and Twisted was just some weird anomaly in this, because we were many things, yes, AC/DC, yes, Van Halen, yes, Judas Priest. I think we covered more Priest songs than any other band. It was just a strange, never repeatable set of circumstances. The tri-state bar scene was it's not going to be repeated. I mean, the drinking age was 18. That's not going to happen again. The drinking age was 18. The drinking age is 18. So what does that mean? Kids 15 with fake proof, came into the clubs, and, you made fake proof in shop class. Is there a shop class anymore? Does even anyone know what shop class means anymore? No, they would go, shop class. What's shop class? We had printing class in my school. Everyone made fake proof. Or you bought it for a couple of bucks, from somebody. That'll never happen again. That's why there were so many kids out going to clubs, because the pool of people was enormous. It doesn't exist today.
JJ, sometimes, you got 9,000 shows. Sometimes things don't go right. I'm thinking 2008, Holland. D gets helicoptered in with no makeup, no costumes. You guys going on T-shirts and jeans for the first time ever. What did it feel like to walk out on that stage without the armor?
It was too funny. It was just like we were just laughing at the absurdity of the whole thing. It was our first time we played with Kiss, so we were thinking, we're going to put all the armor on and do the thing. And there we were, in T-shirts and jeans. And you know what? The only other time we did that, believe it or not, well, I found a video of us. We played a Halloween party at a club and decided the only people that wouldn't be in costume was us. And I found the video of it. It was Halloween 1980 at the Gemini in Yorktown Heights, and we're just wearing jeans and cutoffs. And D goes, it's Halloween. We decided we're the only ones that are not going to be dressed up, and we went out sans makeup and everything else. Anyway, it was like that. The band was so popular in Holland, and we just thought it was funny, like it was absurd. It was the height of absurdity. What was more interesting was that the next day, the reviews of the festival were published, and it was an extraordinary one-day affair. If you can imagine, it was REO Speedwagon, Kansas, Motorhead, Journey, Whitesnake, Twisted Sister, and Kiss in one day, in one afternoon, for €80. So what a bargain. Right? What a bargain. In a huge field in Nijmegen, Holland, and there was 2 stages, one on either side of the field. So every hour on the hour, another band went on and played an hour, which meant all their hits. So you got hit after hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. And we were scheduled to be on at 4 p.m, and at 3 or 2, we were told that D's plane just landed because he came in 8 hours late. And it was never going to happen. And the promoter came in and he said, you're going to have to refund the deposit because you guys aren't going to be playing. And then the helicopter landed behind the stage about 5 minutes to 4. And we're all sitting around the dressing room in T-shirts and jeans going, well, I guess we're not doing this show. And then Deej pops out of the helicopter, wearing T-shirt and jeans. Let's go on. The next day, the only photos that I saw of the festival reviews was us. That was it. And the comment, Twisted Sister was amazing. The show was great. Everybody was great. The bands were all great. Kiss was great. Whitesnake was great. Motorhead was great. Journey was great. Def Leppard was on the bill. I mean, it was an insane day, right? Great day for that kind of music. It was strange. But, we've had so many strange days that to me it was just like, I'm going to remember this one. This is a strange one, but this goes into the annals of another 30 or 40 crazy, like when we played, one weekend we played the Arctic Circle in Oklahoma in an 80-hour period of time. It took 24 hours to get to the Arctic Circle in Norway. It took 24 hours to get to Oklahoma and play. It was 55 degrees in the Arctic Circle, 110 in Oklahoma. In 80 hours, we did these 2 shows, 12 different time zones, 9 planes. It was the craziest weekend of my life. And when I came home on that Monday morning, my wife said to me, how do you feel? And I said to her, I used to pay money in high school to get in this condition. I said, I don't know where I am, how I'm functioning. I was so burnt out and jet lagged. And again, you remember those, among other events. You remember those nights, those weekends.
Playing We're Not Going to Take It to 50,000 people who know every word. What happens inside you in that moment?
That's a good question. It never gets old. The fans sing along, and when you have 100,000 kids singing "We're Not Going to Take It," it's pretty cool. It really is cool. I mean, it's usually the high point of the set. With that, or "I Want to Rock" if they're singing "I Want to Rock" too. Years ago, I think when I was 17, 18 years old, I was reading an interview with Ray Davies from the Kinks, and someone said to him, are you tired of playing You Really Got Me? Now, at that point, it was 1969, 1970, so the Kinks had been around 5 years. You Really Got Me was their big hit. And I'll never forget his comment, and I didn't understand it until I started being in this position. But he said, let me explain. He said to the interviewer, he says, let me explain this to you. You're asking me, would I rather flip hamburgers for a living or play You Really Got Me? Is there really a question here? Is there really a question here? So, my friend Michael is the drummer for Lynyrd Skynyrd, and he's a good friend of mine. He's been the Lynyrd Skynyrd drummer for many, many, many years. And I asked him once, is he ever sick of playing Freebird? And he said, are you sick of playing We're Not Going to Take It? And I went, well, we should write a song called We're Not Going to Play Freebird Anymore. That would be a pretty funny song. That's what people pay for. How bad is it? I mean, it ain't. I'm sorry. Traveling isn't the most fun thing, but to entertain people never gets old. Not for me.
After 5 decades, does it eventually stop feeling like a career and more like an identity or a calling?
Well, I'll always be JJ French from Twisted Sister, no matter what happens in my life, and I don't mean to equate myself with Paul McCartney or anything like that, but he said something like, I'll always be Paul McCartney from the Beatles, it'll be written in my epitaph like that. I will be JJ French from Twisted Sister, regardless of what else I do, because I've been carrying that badge for 50 plus years. So I accept it, and proud of it. And I don't think I could have anticipated, or I don't think any of the bands from 1973, that's the class of Aerosmith and Judas Priest, and probably come up with another 10 bands that all started around 73. I don't think any of us would have ever said, Kiss, obviously, 73. I don't think any of us would have ever said we're going to be here 50 years later. I don't think we had the capacity to think that. In fact, in 73, at that point, the only band that ever lasted more than 5 years was the Beatles, I think, technically 1960 to 1970. Ringo came in 62. They had an 8-year run. The joke was always you got 5 years and then that's the end of it. So if someone said to me then, you're going to be talking about Twisted Sister as a performing act in 50 years, I'd go, you got to be out of your mind. That ain't going to happen. Yet, look, I mean, how many times was Mick Jagger quoted, I'm not doing this after 30, or how many times did Roger Daltrey, hope I die before I get old,
At the final show in Monterrey, you handed your guitars to the road crew. What did that moment feel like? And what's it like picking them back up now?
Yeah, that was in my head, the end. And so I thought that was the end. And I was looking forward to it. I wanted to retire 2 years earlier. I'd had it. I'd really just been tired. And then AJ died. And then we decided to hang out till the 40th anniversary. So we did 2 more years. And Mike Portnoy, the great Mike Portnoy, the legendary Mike Portnoy, said he would play drums with us, And when the guys heard that, they were all moved incredibly to have someone of that stature want to play with us, And so we did it. But I gave my guitar to my tech and took a bow and walked off stage and went, okay, cool career. This is it. Fine. The fact that I'm about to do it again is crazy. And I'll probably, if you check back with me in 6 months, after we finish those domestic dates with Sebastian and ask me what that was like, I'll have a comment to make on it. Because I don't know what that's going to be like. But I'm sure it'll be like everything else, which is once we get there and we plug in and we play the songs, it just comes back.
You've been back in the rehearsal room after years away. What feels different about preparing for shows now versus 1984?
Well, maybe taking ibuprofen early. I'm serious. I mean, it's got, our motto is sex, prescription drugs, and rock and roll. It's, we're all older and your body feels it a bit, but when you're on stage, it doesn't. It's remarkable how much Eddie OJ and I were talking about that. It's the body takes over and the brain takes over. And then you go into this mode. Look, we're not playing football. We're not being hit, we're just putting a guitar on and playing rock music. And Eddie and I have been playing rock music since high school. So that's kind of cool. When I look at Eddie, I go, man, Eddie and I met in January of 1969 when they threw me out of one high school and put me in his high school. And that's how we met. I think he walked up to me when the first day I walked in, he sees a guy with long hair and goes, another one. You must be a musician, And
JJ, what's the one thing you're generally excited about for this new chapter?
That it goes over well, because Twisted is not just one person. It's a band. It's a thing. It's an idea. It's a thought. And as every, people say to me, oh, D, how can you replace D? Well, you weren't supposed to replace Freddie Mercury, and you weren't supposed to be able to replace Steve Perry, and you weren't supposed to be able to replace Bon Scott, and you weren't supposed to be replaced David Lee Roth, and you did. And the band's carried on. In Twisted, when we fired the first singer, people said to me, how are you going to make it without that guy? Like Michael. This was a big thing. And then when we fired the second guy, people said, how are you going to get on without that guy? And when we fired our drummer, Tony Petrie, fans objected severely. They actually showed up at the Palladium with big posters saying, you're never going to make it without Tony Petrie. This is the drummer, mind you. This is not even the singer. This is the drummer. He had such a big following. You're never going to make it without Tony. You're never going to make it with Joey. Joey Brighton was fired. You're never going to make it without Joey. So I've heard it all, All I can say is this. You put the product out there, the public buys it or they don't buy it. And that's really the case. And if the public didn't buy Van Halen with Sammy, they wouldn't have continued. If they didn't buy Queen with Adam, they couldn't continue. If you didn't want Journey without Steve Perry with the replacement guy, it never would have continued. Well, I'm prepared. We'll do the best we can do, and I believe it'll be great. And, for people who've never seen the band, they have nothing to compare it to. Okay, they got videos. And we shall see. The proof will be in the European festival market if we go back and do it. Because that's where they've kind of seen the band in its giant glory. America hasn't ever really seen. We play much more in Europe and South America in stadiums than we do in America. So I don't see it that way. So hopefully we'll put a product out there that people will love.
JJ, before I let you go, if you could preserve one moment from your life on stage, one memory sealed in the vault forever, what would that be?
There is one moment, which doesn't necessarily equate to the biggest crowds or a day that anybody would really care about, but it was the day that we played a gig in Long Island at a club called Speaks. It was in August of '79 on the 25th anniversary of rock and roll. It was a night that Dick Clark was doing a TV show, 25th anniversary of rock and roll, and I wanted to watch it before we went on stage, and I brought a little black and white TV into the dressing room, and I told the club owner, Ralph, we're not going on till 11. I want to watch the whole thing. Normally we go on at 10:30. And it was a history of the greatest live performances in rock and roll leading up to 1979. So it started off with Elvis and Little Richard and that stuff, and then Jerry Lee Lewis, and continued on to the Beatles and blah, blah, blah. And it ended with Springsteen doing Rosalita at the bottom line. And I was infused by the power of it. And somehow we went on stage that night. Somehow something happened. Something happened during that set that justified every sacrifice I ever made. And I walked off stage that said, and Mendoza felt the same, because he walked up to me and said, what the hell just happened? And my friend Scott was in the audience, and he walks up to me, he goes, what the hell just happened? And I said, what happened was the validation of every sacrifice I ever made was justified right now. And if it ends tomorrow, I will have walked with the gods. That's the best way I can put it. And that was a nondescript night. Maybe there was 1,500 people in the room that night. It wasn't a record deal night. And there's plenty of those nights that are meaningful. There are many meaningful nights. But no night ever justified for me why I did what I did, why I sacrificed what I sacrificed in order to become successful. And that was way early. That was 1979. And occasionally I'll talk to my friend Scott, and we talk about that night. And there was a book on the Beatles by Bob Spitz. It's like really the authoritative book on the Beatles. And I wanted to find the page in which he described Beatlemania for the first time the kids screamed. Like, what was that night like? Why did it happen on that night? And I found the page in which he described the night that they started screaming. That was the beginning for them. And it was at the Cavern Club. They had just come back from their latest tour in Hamburg, and something happened that night. And they don't know what it was, but something happened that night. Well, something happened that night with me and Twisted, and that is the most memorable night of my life in the regards of the band. In regard to the band.
JJ, thank you so much, man. That's incredible. I'm so glad you had that moment. I want to thank you for joining me, for sharing that, for sharing your story. Wishing you guys the best of luck, man.
Well, thank you for actually doing a 30-minute Zoom that actually is 30 minutes. Okay, that's kind of amazing. Thank you.
Stage Vault. Stage Vault.
JJ French just showed us why Twisted Sister own those arenas. That perfect mix of chaos and focus right before the first chord hits. Same song, same band, but every single night felt brand new. If this hits you, subscribe wherever you listen, leave a review, and smash that like button. It really helps the show grow. Next week, another legend steps into the vault. I'm Chuck. Thanks for hanging out with me. See you next time.